Hello and welcome to the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast with Mike and Laurent. It is Friday, September 3rd. We just went through the transfer window, and in this episode, we're going to talk about all the transfers, every single one. But first, Mike, how did you feel about the transfer window as a whole, as an event, as a thing? We had no dildos in ears, but we had other things. What did you like?
We didn't. We had the greatest transfer window of all time. And the funny thing about that was that transfer deadline day was good. It was fine. But it sort of went out with a fart noise relative to Cristiano Ronaldo,
Friday,
Leo Messi, Romelu Lukaku, all the Kane stuff. We'll get all into it. But wow. Fabrizio Romano, have yourself a day off, will you? What a guy. I love him.
I watched him on Twitch.
I did too.
Like hanging out doing nothing.
Yeah, well, but it was like his buddy was doing all the talking, and he was clearly off camera, like on 4 cell phones. He was like if Adam Schefter and Waj and who's the doofus from baseball, Jeff Passan, if they all were like in one person, but they're Italian and handsome. That was Fabrizio Romano. He was so great. We got to have him on the show. We got to throw a Hail Mary and get him on here. But
what's his thing? Here we go.
Here we go, right? So
he's got his own branded weird thing. Like he should just be on. Why does it? This is the thing. Like you think about. I'm going to digress a little bit, but like you think about ESPN and how they do the stupidest things in the world. Just like get the best people. What are you doing?
Well, the definition of the best people. The thing about the idea of journalism is that it's nebulous, and there's no scoreboard. There's no way to grade them, right? So
in this case, there is.
In this case, right, it's whoever's getting the most scoops and whoever's getting. But like how Bob Nightingale, baseball, still has a job. Like he tweeted a fake Jeff Passan account during the deadline stuff. He gets duped all the time by idiots on Twitter. So it's like what the what's the sign from one of the like protests last year? Like our expectations for you were low, but holy fuck! Like that's a lot of the guys out there. Where it's like, how do you still have a job?
Yeah,
Meanwhile, in Europe, the main difference is there's not negligence. It's intentional. It's like, hey, we're trying to just stir up rumors and stories and whatever.
Just
so
make it up. It's
because
crazy. The other thing is there's no access, right? So you just have to make things
right.
Anyway,
but we're gonna go through some of the big teams, and then talk a little bit about some of the finer points that we thought were really cool about this. But first, I'm gonna throw it back at you. Let's talk about. What are you wearing, Laurent? I happen to notice.
Hey, I got my Squeaky Bum Time T-shirt.
Look at that shirt.
And,
it's lovely.
I got inspired by.
Bless you. The cough button didn't work.
No.
But who'd you get inspired by?
I got inspired by my friend Joe Howard out in Seattle, his family and Ann and the kids. He took a picture of it and he was like, send it. He took a picture of himself with the shirt on. I was like, oh. I'm buying my own goddamn shirt.
Joe, we love you.
It's my show.
We love you.
Joe Howard, you fucking legend.
What a man.
Yeah,
awesome. So we've got merch available on shopsportsmedia.com. You'll see it under the Squeaky Bum Time link. We've got a few shirts. We've got the Nuno Nose shirt, which, by the way, undefeated, 3-0, 1-0 wins. And we've got our logo on a bunch of stuff. So check it out. Take a good look. We have we're working on a new design for a Man City shirt, the pep roulette, if you will.
It's a little mean, but it's also like fantasy nerdy. Yeah.
It's a little janky, but we're working on it still. Keep in mind, we are the designers of these, so questionable quality at best, but we're doing the best we can here. But anyway, let's get into it. We're going to start with Manchester United. Like I said, we're going to talk about the main teams, and as the Premier League goes, there was no bigger story than Cristiano Ronaldo returning back to the Manchester Red. And really capping off what was otherwise a strong window for them. But holy cherry on the Sundae, Batman.
Yeah. I think, at first, let's sort of do the rundown. They finally got Jadon Sancho done after 2 years of chasing him. They did that early. That was like right in the Euros almost. Right after the Euros. They cover him off. That's no problem. Then part of the sort of star drain of Spain, which is a whole other topic, and we'll make sure we cover what's going on with Barcelona as an anecdote. Part of the star drain is you have the 3-time winning defensive partnership of the European Champions leave. So Real Madrid's 2 best defenders, Ramos and Varane, both leave. They grab Varane on a relatively cheap. He's in his mid-20s. He's in his late 20s. 41 million pound transfer for Varane. This is a top level defender. And then, they grabbed Tom Heaton, a former United player, as a backup to the backup, right? So they've got their goalkeeping covered on a free. So no big deal there. They moved Dan James out after they get Ronaldo, who should never have been on United. I don't know how he even got there.
It was so weird watching him play for United when they had all this attacking talent. Like, he even played a few games this season. And I was like, he had a great start to, I think, last season.
He scored 3 goals in the first 5 or something.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like the new kid for United and all that stuff. But as I got to see him, I'm like, oh, he's like a shit little scrawny Traore is what he feels like to me.
Yeah, that's what he is. And the famous thing is he was supposed to go to Leeds in their version of All or Nothing the first year with Bielsa. Mm-hmm. They made like 3 episodes about the Daniel James transfer, where it's one of these, they have the paperwork and they blow it and he doesn't go. And he stays at Swansea. And at Swansea, his level was great. But at United, he's miscast and it's just like, you're a championship super fast winger. It's not like he's young. He's he's young, but he's not like he's 17. He's 23, right?
He's 23, yeah.
And Bielsa will make something out of him. Bielsa.
I was going to say, I actually really like that for Leeds because of Bielsa.
Bielsa will find something to do with him. He'll make him run around until he loses his brain.
He does have a little bit of an end product, which, I mean, they're sort of wanting for at this point at Leeds. Yeah. So it's not a ton, not 32 million worth, but somewhere in the middle.
And then, of course, they have Ronaldo. Now, from a overall United get better thing, they have gotten better. Mm-hmm. So let's just say this is automatically, they have a grade of a B, right?
Yep.
But it's not an A for me because I don't think I'm going to put the letter grade in.
Okay.
I don't think Ronaldo is what they needed. This is very similar to Chelsea with the first year of Frank, where they buy all these players all in the same place. They basically get suckered into buying Cristiano without, I don't have a better way to say it. There was no market. No one was going to buy them. They hear about City and they buy Cristiano on emotion. And is he going to score? Is he going to do all these things? We don't know. We do know.
We know he's going to score.
But at to the detriment of who?
Well, that's what I was saying. We talked about this already on one of the other episodes. Where is he going to score? You bet your ass.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Late Gretzky. Do you remember late Gretzky Rangers?
Yeah, I do. He was great.
Bad. He was good. The team was bad, right?
They were great in '97 and horrible after that when Messier left.
But it was sort of like they would feed him the puck. He was like a minus 30. He didn't check anyone.
No, well, that's exactly. So that's a great parallel.
He still got the 80 assists, but he was like 15 goals that were tap-ins. He couldn't shoot. He couldn't get around the ice anymore. It was like, what are we doing? It's Gretzky on the Rangers. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
But they weren't good. So that's what I fear for Ronaldo. Like, there's a lot of, again, I talk about this a lot, but that zero sum, like, is Greenwood not going to play? Is Rashford not going to play? Is Sancho not going to be able to break in? Is it going to be Cavani and Ronaldo, or is Ronaldo going to play through the middle? Ronaldo really doesn't want to play through the middle. They're going to be playing with 10 men all the time, constantly, because he doesn't defend at all. So that's the thing.
That's a segue for me, because the one thing that they, by the way, take Ronaldo out of it. This was a very good window for United, but what's the one position?
It's not a C or a D or a failure.
Sure. But
they could win the league.
The one position they really needed to strengthen, and they didn't, was defensive midfielder, and they didn't touch it. They didn't touch it at all.
And Camavinga, the guy they should have got, there's an article in The Atlantic that literally said he would have been worth 6 points. This is after they signed Sancho. Yeah. 6 points is a big difference. A defensive midfielder who just wants to defend, break up play, can carry the ball. They really need Ndombele, the idea of Ndombele.
yeah, right, exactly.
So
that's the thing for me,
right? They need Højbjerg.
Exactly, and you don't need this big sexy brand name.
They got duped.
I don't care so much about that, because now they're similar to City, where you can basically pick the attacking 3 or 4 out of a hat, and it's gonna be fine, right?
City's Pep Roulette, man. You never know who the fuck.
But that's what I'm saying. You're there now. You basically
Yeah.
you have Bruno, you have Greenwood, you have Rashford, you have Sancho, Ronaldo, Cavani. I'm missing one or two.
Here's
I'm
something
sure.
to remember. In the Euros, either he was tired or playing Bruno with Cristiano is a problem because they get in each other's way. They want to be in the same place, right? These are these things that it's one thing is another thing. Like Pep says it all the time. It's like I don't have defenders who defend. I don't have attackers who attack. We defend as a group. We attack as a group. Everybody does everything, right? It's very much like City don't have any good defenders, really. Sure. They kind of just defend as a unit. And this is where the Ole thing comes in. Does anyone trust Ole to figure this out? You know my opinion. No.
Well, okay. What you've done is you've taken a guy who's, first of all, you had a few already. You have Pogba. You've got, even like Maguire almost. You've got players whose name brands, their egos, they're so sure. But like what I'm saying is they're so much bigger than Ole. So now you've got the biggest person in the world. Is he going to be able to manage that at all? Is he going to command the respect of Ronaldo? That's a tall order.
No, he's not. He's not big enough.
No.
Anyway, so speaking of a B, United got a B, and then we have to go on to the next in our list is of the contenders. It's really the contenders we're talking about.
Yeah, I think really so.
Close. It's Chelsea, and we talked about Marina Granovskaya last week and got a lot of views. So thanks everybody for watching it. It really made a difference in our sort of profile. But they're an A. They're an A plus. Yep. They're just like they got the one guy they needed. They got the full on attack, and then they probably have potentially the deal of the freaking window. And we can't even list who they moved out. They cleared the decks. They made so much money. I think they're a net positive in this window.
They could have been. It could have been after the 2.59 million positive. Unbelievable.
And they bought a $100 million player.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is just, again, we can't really talk about it more. The Liverpool result, even though they were under the cosh and you had this problem of, being down a man, that was a win for them. At Anfield, 45 minutes down a man. And they bullied Liverpool.
Yeah.
Down a man. At Anfield, going into the top end, they gave up nothing. It's a bully team. I was not a Tuchelista. I don't really remember him too much at Dortmund or Mainz. I just remember him at PSG trying to take on the Neymar and Mbappe duo, and that seemed to be just, he couldn't really break Neymar, which is what he needed to do. And he got himself fired, basically, in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Fuck you guys, I'm out of here," because he's not political. He's like, that's the nice thing. One of the things that's different, and I don't know if everyone knows this about the Premier League, is it's much less political than other leagues. Like La Liga is a shit show in terms of management and how much you have to be available. France has a very vicious press that has literally never given out a 10 out of 10 to a player in a ratings review. Now, France is not hardcore. Italy, we know, is super duper intense. You have the fucking ultras trying to kill you. England is the cake. The managers do 2 interviews a week, and that's it.
Yep.
And nobody bothers you. So for Tuchel, it's like a dream. It's like, oh, this is awesome. I love
it's interesting. Right? I'm looking more at Chelsea's list, right? And like you said, there's 2 players that they brought in. Yep. That's it. They brought in Romelu Lukaku, obviously, and Saul Niguez right at the buzzer on deadline day. And what he gives you, first of all, speaking of players United should have gotten, he's a very, very strong central midfielder. But what he does, he's 26 years old. He's a good player. He's an option to buy him next year. He gives you Conte insurance.
Cover.
Right. Now and so that's kind of,
they got cover for both spots.
Yeah.
For both the Jorginho and the Conte spot.
And so, going back to our girl Marina, we were talking about Tammy Abraham, Kurt Zuma, Tomori to Milan, Zappacosta, Moses, Bakayoko, Giroud.
They just cleared out everything.
It's incredible.
It's like a whole team that they transferred out.
So the term that Spurs fans use about a lot of their players is dead wood. And it's absolutely right. I mean, for the only players, I would say Zuma is not necessarily dead wood. He's surplus to requirements. And Tammy Abraham as well. Tammy Abraham's already off to the races at Roma. He's going to be really good. He's going to be the guy
they can bring him back.
They're going to buy him back in 3 years. Right, exactly. So I think that, I don't think there's any question that they get an A. They didn't. The business they did was in balancing the books and making sure that they could go get the one player they absolutely needed. And it should be said, this is not, we talked about it before we started recording, this is not the reason they went to get Lukaku, but one of the side effects of that was Lautaro Martinez and Inter and Spurs had agreed a contract already. No. They had agreed a deal. And Chelsea came in and gazumped them. They're like, oh, yeah, 70? Here's 100 for Lukaku. Yeah. And they're like, well, Lautaro, sit your ass down. He's already signed a new contract.
Here's another important piece. These are not bad. They're not really dead wood. It's just guys who had never had a shot.
That's what I'm saying.
We've already seen at Southampton, is a really good player. Guehi, who's playing at Crystal Palace, we'll cover Palace in a minute, is incredible. Giroud's already scoring goals. So they're sprinkling great talent through the league and making money. One man's trash is another man's treasure. And some guys, they just have to make a move. And we see the sad American Matt Miazga, who's supposed to be something, but it's not.
Oh, remember when he was supposed to be a thing?
Yeah, well, it's fine. And then I think we move on to Liverpool, who I think we've talked about it as a theme. They're still really running the same group out there. They brought in one player. They brought in Konate. Konate, is that his name? Defender.
Yeah.
And they'll break him in slowly. He's covered. They don't want to go into their deep bin. The guy they brought in during the great tragedy of poor Liverpool, they lost other defenders. Kabak they sent out already. They just use him. You play defense, you can go now. But I still think they're long in the tooth. I still think I just don't see them. They're on the outside looking in of the four.
I mean, first of all, they're really, really strong, right? And let me just say
they're really, really good. But we're talking about fine margins here, right? We're talking like the difference between Chelsea, Liverpool, City, and Manchester United. They're all really close, I think, this season. Had City gotten Kane, I think they would have gotten further away.
Well, of course. And I actually don't see them all that close still. But, Chelsea maybe. Anyway, speaking of Liverpool, what we talked about, this is a while ago now, but the way that I characterize them is very similar to, I want to say like just after the last season of White Hart Lane Spurs with Pochettino, because what they had was a group. They didn't have anybody that they could afford to really go out and arguably take the place of one of those players in the best 11, right?
A D? Wow, I didn't even see your grade.
I gave them a D, yeah. But
okay.
But the problem is with that is that they didn't really get cover. They have Jota from last year, and he's proving to be great. By the way, Mane and Salah are going to fuck off for like 6 weeks in Africa. God knows they'll probably have to quarantine when they come back.
They might shut the whole thing down.
They might shut the whole thing down, and in that case, fine. But like you have to go into the season planning to lose 2 of your 3 attacking players for 6 weeks, if not more. So knowing that, they really didn't do much. Now, it should be said, they graduated Harvey Elliott. He looks like a real player. He's very, very good. And if you can solve those problems from within, that's great.
Yeah.
But you really didn't reinforce anything.
I mean, that's the thing, that we're sort of just taking these things in a vacuum. There are things that emerge. There's an injury that can happen. That's what I mean by saying these are close. Like for Arsenal, for United, right? It's a B because does Cristiano fit in? They don't have that one piece. It's an A for Chelsea because they get the one thing that they needed, which was someone who could score goals. And Lukaku looks transformed. He was the best player in a 10-man team just because of his defensive value. And then we have Liverpool, who's just like, it's getting. Are you Burnley in disguise? Why are you running the same fucking guys out there over and over again?
No, but that's why. Because there's not. Go
ahead.
No. Well, there's not the player who's going to come in and challenge any of these players. They let Wijnaldum walk. That was confusing to me. Why wouldn't you just let him? Why don't you pay him, right? And that's sort of another thing where. And by the way,
they thought Elliott. Maybe they think he's.
That's
ready.
fine. That's fine. And they do have players coming through the system, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is that they have this. It's not an ironclad best 11. But what they have is they're strapped right now, relatively speaking. The Fenway Sports Group is trying to keep their shit on the straight and narrow. I mean, look, you saw it with the Red Sox.
Companies don't spend money.
They traded Mookie Betts for no good goddamn reason at all.
Yeah, that's what I would tell Liverpool fans. Go ask Red Sox fans how they're feeling.
Right, exactly. So you've got that. It's the same ownership group. And the other thing is that they would have spent 25-30 million if there was a player who could make a difference for that price. And it's sort of a chicken and the egg situation. And that's what I mean, is that's where they have that parallel to that Spurs team from 4 or 5 years ago.
Though, that I think is a problem. It's the players that were supposed to make a difference by now have not. Minamino, nothing out of him.
Yep.
Oxlade Chamberlain, nothing.
Shaqiri. They sold Shaqiri.
Well, he was already there. Keita, nothing. I mean, Keita's maybe now. But like the player, they've been sort of getting away with things that haven't worked. Like they've signed guys that haven't. I mean, only Fabinho after that first breakthrough has been the difference maker, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Speaking of Thiago,
Thiago. Not. I mean, he is injury prone anyway. But still, they need help. I think Liverpool actually need to talk to our friend Joe. I think they need.
You think they do?
Attitude of I think they do. I think they need Attitude of Gratitude Consulting to help them out with finding money to find replacements for their team. Now, all seriousness though, Joe from Attitude of Gratitude is our pal. He's a financial consultant and a financial wizard. Helps people with their financial issues more on like the real tactical level, not like these 1,000-foot level, but like, let me see your bills. Why are you paying this? Why do you watch the 5th thing of Netflix? Did you know that the overlap between Amazon and Netflix is this much? So he helps you out finding money to make sure that the things in your house are running well and you have the money you need for the things you want to do. Just contact our friend Joe at Attitude of Gratitude Consulting at attitudeofgratitudeconsulting.com. Liverpool, give Joe a call. We need your help. And speaking of people who don't need their help.
Wait. Imagine, real quick, I want to expand on that. Imagine if John Henry listens to the show, right? Big fan of Squeaky Bum
big
Time.
fan of the show, Joe.
Yeah.
John Henry.
So John Henry calls up.
Fenway.
He calls up Joe, our pal Joe, and he goes, "Hey, is this Joe from Attitude of Gratitude Consulting? This is John Henry, Fenway Sports Group. I run Liverpool Football Club and the Boston Red Sox. I hope Joe's a New Jersey guy. I hope you would hang up on him just because I hope Joe's a Yankee fan." But I don't know what baseball team Joe supports. But regardless, I'm just envisioning a world where the head of Fenway Sports Group is like, this
guy
who
made money on hedge funds and micro trading and all sorts of bullshit like that.
And then Joe would kick it back to us and be like, "Well, stop signing Naby Keita, you fucking idiot." So Joe,
can I look at your transfer record?
Right.
Yeah,
Joe,
that didn't work.
I'm gonna say this, Joe. If you get a call from John Henry, give us a call. We'll help you with that one. Okay? You help us out a lot. We'll help you out with this one. We promise.
For
the house. On the house.
On the house. You're getting an extra long ad there.
Yeah.
And speaking of a team that does not need help with financial consulting, but does need help with making deals, my team, Manchester City.
What do you got?
It has to be a C. It has to be. It has to be a C. It's weird to be a C. You're the champions. You had the most swag-tastic English player in a decade in Jack Grealish. It all looked so good. But the naive sort of dealing of either trusting Charlie Kane or trusting Harry Kane to be like, yeah, we'll get out of this. And you're being like, no, you're not getting out of this. And thinking that if you just hold firm on, Daniel Levy says it's 150 million pounds, and they go, no, I'll give you 100. And he's like, no, I'm not giving you, no. What word don't you understand? No, right. I'm not doing this. I cannot replace Harry Kane for Bernardo Silva and 70 million pounds. That's not. There was
so much fanfare around Grealish and around Kane that I just assumed they were doing.
Yeah.
I just assumed they were doing other business. I'm looking at their transfers list. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Some players went out that
it needs to be said. What does Manchester City need? They needed a striker, but otherwise, they're too deep at every position. And
Yeah, they don't need anything.
I've said it on the show. They didn't need Jack Grealish. They
No.
needed a striker. They didn't need Harry Kane. You know who they needed?
A striker.
They needed Danny Ings. And
But
we'll talk about Villa.
He's not.
Dude.
Not. He's too English. He's too something. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Fine. You know who they could have used? Tammy Abraham, right? So like,
I'll take him.
Yeah. Oh my God, he would. Any
kind of use striker. Like there's a famous, Wilfred Boney we signed. Like we could have taken Dzeko back. I mean, like a body, someone who's in the box, just a striker of a competent level. Like once Danny Ings went, I was like, hey, well, Ollie Watkins, go get him. I like him. He'll run,
exactly.
He's young. He'll do stuff, right? Yeah. And we love stealing things from Aston Villa, so why not go get Ollie Watkins? But yeah, the Kane thing, and then the getting played by United for Ronaldo, like being in the mix for that, having that Thursday night where I'm sending fucking welcome to Manchester things and getting retweeted by fucking freezing cold takes. Like that was my moment of glory. And I took it as a very City way to do it at Schadenfreude against myself. So it felt shitty. It didn't have to be this bad, but like when you break it down, it's like you didn't get Messi last year. He was available again. You still didn't get him because you didn't want to get played. You had Kane as the target. No backup. No fallback plan. No like, hey, my guy, if this falls through, we're going to call you right away. Just hang on. None of that.
Right.
Then Ronaldo comes like, oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, Mendes is like calling Ed Woodward. He's going to City. And then he calls fucking Rio Ferdinand and he calls Alex Ferguson. And Ferguson gives him the fucking Aberdeen cry. He's not fucking going to goddamn City. And it happens in seconds.
Yep.
And City are there just like, yeah, we're fine. We're okay with what we have. No, Ferran Torres is not a fucking striker.
No. Well, okay.
We want him to be.
Okay, and we're 3 games in. We're at the international break, obviously.
Goals, no problem.
No, I'm not worried about Ferran Torres. Phil Foden in the false 9. If that's the worst you do, what a horrible hardship Manchester City has.
He's the only one who has any fucking.
I can't quit you, Phil Foden. I want to, but I can't.
I know. You got the roulette of like, who the fuck's gonna play? I think the Grealish thing was actually really vital and a season early. They got him a season early because I think the points.
Yeah. No. And they're continuing to replenish, right? Like, yeah, Sterling's getting long in the tooth. I get that. But man, you like I said about United, you've got all those 6 players. By the way, I didn't even mention Paul Pogba when I listed those players off. City, let's go with it. You've got Torres, you've got Foden, De Bruyne, Grealish, Gabriel Jesus, Bernardo Silva. That's 6 right there. There's like 2 or 3 that I'm missing.
You forgot about Gundogan.
Well, he
led the team in goals.
He led the team in goals, but he's further back in the field. Yeah. I'm saying like attacking players. But so
there's nothing. And then my guy Delap that I can't wait.
And so that's the other question I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Well, he's 18. If he plays 10 games, it would be a fucking miracle. But you don't know. Guys can get hurt. He'll be in those games, those extra games. He's a big fucking mother. Guy scored 25 goals in the junior levels. So.
I mean, look, and what does that mean in the Premier League level? Fuck all is what it means. But it means
City. It means nothing. Yeah.
But on City. But if you walk into that team, if you are physical, if you can play the position, you're going to fall ass backwards into goals, right?
Yeah, he could be Holland disguised for all I know. I'm not smart enough to know enough about football, but he's big, strong, and fast.
Sure, and yeah,
but he's not like Holland is really fast.
Yeah, I'm interested to see him, and we'll see what happens. So that's a C for Manchester City. We're going to go on to my beloved Tottenham Hotspur, and this is the first passing grade they've gotten in a while. I would say last summer they probably got a B-ish, B- as well. But before that, it's been like D, D, F, F, D, F, horrible. It was like my first semester.
Somebody didn't show up, right? Like it took a gap year.
Yeah, it was like my first semester in college. So
you're like, what's it? Double secret probation? Are you
the way that I look at this? I was actually. The way that I look at Spurs window is first two ways. They got rid of they lost Toby Alderweireld. They lost Eric Lamela. There were a couple of players who
get rid of
came
the
in.
last of the Poches.
Yeah, but these are staples, right? Every player that went out the door, a younger, promising, arguably higher ceiling player came in, right? So you have Christian Romero, who replaces Toby. By the way, sneaky little bit of business there. It's a loan with a permanent obligation to buy, which means that 50 million transfer is actually on next year's books, which is going to be next year's excuse why we don't get what we want. Brian Heel was basically a 20 million transfer with 20 million and Eric Lamela. He looks like a player. I'm really excited about him. On deadline day, Emerson Royal from Barcelona is part of the exodus from Barca, and we'll talk about that in a second. 22 years old. He's a right back. So he's effectively –
and then your man Aurier just got cut. Like, here's your contract. Get the fuck out
Don't
of
let
here.
the door hit you on the ass on the way out. And a sneaky move, Pape Sarr, they 18 years old, one of the more promising players in Europe. This is the Paratici effect, right? Like, these are the players that Tottenham are in for now, whereas they never would have been. Frankly, you know who this reminds me of? A little bit more expensive when we bought him, Dele Alli. We loaned him back to MK Dons at his age 18 season. He played and he came back over to us the next year. So I like the business that they did. I wish they could have gotten rid of a little bit more deadwood. I looked though, 40 million in wages came off the books this year. That's not nothing, especially in Spurs universe. So the caveat there is I don't know how much came on the books.
Is what makes you almost have an A. Is that you didn't lose
and right and you held on to Harry Kane. Thank you. So that's the main piece for me. You basically
I have a real question.
Yeah.
Could he, if you guys are okay in January and you're looking decent,
yeah,
would Levy move him?
No, just out of because he's petty, he wouldn't. Not because it's good or bad business, but the interesting thing though.
But the thing is, if City then just goes, you know what, we're fucking doing it. We're winning this Champions League. I fucking had it.
Yeah, and guess what? The price just went up again. But if that were the case, then I would say I don't think so. But
that's what
the interesting thing.
If I were you, I would want that to happen. If I were a Spurs fan. And you're having a good, positive first half of the season. Kane is doing okay, but, we're fine. We're not going to go down. We're not slumping. And you see City in like 6th place or 5th place, I would move Kane at that point. Take the money.
Well, so that's the interesting thing. It's not so much about the place, it's the margins, right? The goal for this team is to get back in the top 4. The goal for this team is to get into Champions League because
get to the top 4. Not the way it is now.
I'm not saying we are or we aren't. What I'm saying is the mission statement at Tottenham Hotspur is because the problem they had this year, they had an agreement for Jules Koundé, who almost went to Chelsea and ended up not. They had that in the bag. It was Davinson Sanchez, who, by the way, looks like he's starting to come good as an aside, and 20 million for Jules Koundé, right? You're going to put him right next to Romero. You're going to have a completely revamped center back position. Mm-hmm. But he wouldn't come because he didn't want to play in the Europa Conference League, right? There were a lot of recruitment issues for those top-level players that Paratici did a good job negotiating with, but it just wasn't to be because all these players were like, well, I want Champions League. He flirted with Weston McKennie, who's playing right now for the United States of America against El Salvador, we think. So, he was hamstrung. I think he did really well for what he had to work with. But not moving out enough deadwood for me is why it's a B- and not maybe an A.
I think they did good. I think they did good.
No. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's amazing. That's all.
And then to their lucky neighbor, the fact that Arsenal gets included in this list is a little bit weird. I mean, we get Spurs, but Arsenal incomplete. We don't know what the fuck they look like, right? They've made some deals that they might be good. I don't know. I think right now their grade, I'm sure Arsenal fans are saying it's a D. I just don't know right now because a lot of these guys that they got are big money buys, right? Like Lukaku looks okay, 15 million, not bad. Mm-hmm. Ben White, I know from my days at Brighton, is good. Is he 50 million good?
No.
I don't know, but
he's not 50 million good.
He might be someday, but they're paying over the margins for players that might be, because that's where they
That's
are
the
right
interesting
now.
thing. Yeah.
Odegaard, we both like and both discussed.
It's almost like, and so I was talking to a friend of mine, Taylor, who listens to the show but couldn't stomach the Arsenal talk because we were hammering them last week. So Taylor,
I do have one good, the Tomiyasu from Bologna one.
We'll get to him in a
is going to
second.
be good, and I'll tell you why. Because people are biased against Asian sports athletes.
Yeah, that's fine.
He's
That's
probably
fine.
way better, just like Son is way better, and just like Kagawa is really good. Just like all these guys, they're different.
He's interesting because he's a defensive-minded defender, right? He's a right back / center back. He's not really your prototypical Premier League get forward fullback. He can be a little more versatile.
But he's got nastiness. He fights.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, Spurs were in on him for a while until Barcelona was having that fire sale with Emerson Royal. So they were like, "Oh, sorry, Takahiro, have fun in the other part of North London." But the thing about Arsenal, and you mentioned it, is that they are they're overpaying for marginal players. Not marginal, I shouldn't say, but they're certainly overpaying. And I said this to my buddy Taylor, who again we apologize to for the Arsenal slander, as warranted as it may or may not be.
Slander, it's real. This is what's happening.
It is real. But the thing is that I was like, you remember Rounders when John Turturro goes, if you can't find the sucker in the table in the first 5 minutes, you're the sucker. That's how transfer negotiations go with Arsenal, right? Teams go, Aaron Ramsdale, huh? 40 million. And they're like, I don't know about that. 35 million. Okay, deal, idiot. Here you go. Here's Aaron fucking Ramsdale. So,
that transfer boggles the mind.
Yeah.
$30 million for Aaron Ramsdale. He's too short, and he's gone down twice. Now, he's been the player of the season for both those teams. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
It just means he's too short and has to dive and make it look like he's doing stuff.
Right.
Give me the fucking 6'7" Mendy goalkeepers.
Oh,
and
he's
how
fantastic.
much was Magnan that Inter bought after they let Donnarumma go?
I honestly don't know, but yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I like Ben White. I think he's in more the John Stones mold than Vincent Kompany, or he's definitely not Campbell. He's definitely not Tony Adams, which is what they need. What they needed to sign Dunk and White together. My guy. I've been telling them, sign Tarkowski and White. If they had just signed Tarkowski, people would be so happy. They'd be like, oh my God, I have a real English defender who's like, oh, this ball, you're going to kick it to me? There's people coming? It's going. It's gone. I'm not fucking
Now, we have to say, and this is one of my best deal segments for later on. Okay. I love the Martin Odegaard signing. I think he was their best player last year. He's already hit the ground running a little bit. There's not all that much around him right now. It's going to get better for Arsenal. He is going to be one of the main reasons it gets better.
But we already said it, man. They need 10 points from their next 5 games. 10.
Yeah.
It has to be 10. Doesn't have to beat Tottenham, has to play well versus Tottenham. They can lose.
No, if they lose if they lose by accident and play well and lose, it's still where they are now. That's gonna.
But it'd be like a bullshit VAR goal. Then no one's gonna kill them over that. You know what I mean?
Okay, fine. Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, that's my best deal. We'll start with that. Is Martin Odegaard to Arsenal? Big fan of his. I think, like I said, I think that it is going to get better, but he's going to unlock a little bit more of Smith Rowe. And that's the thing. Everybody around him is going to get a little bit better because his attention being applied to all the other players around him.
So the funny thing is my best deal is Damari Gray. If you remember him from the Leicester days, he was sort of the up-and-comer, speedy guy. They send him away to Bayer Leverkusen. He doesn't really stick there. But Everton buy him back for less than $3 million. That's the kind of deal that Arsenal need. They need guys like that. They need to take flyers on players who can deliver. And Damari Gray scored a goal against my beloved Brighton the other day. Now, it was made by Allen's midfield pass. Really, Arsenal need Allen, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, Everton are a better club and a bigger club than Arsenal in a weird way. Not big.
Better. I don't know about bigger. We don't talk about Everton when they suck.
No,
that's
because they don't have
Arsenal's
lunatic fan. They don't have Arsenal fan TV. There's no Everton fan TV.
But
People
the,
are
the
losing.
thing about the reason why they're not even close to as big a club as Arsenal is because
Well, they haven't won
they
anything
didn't
since the 80s.
they haven't had the fall from grace exactly.
Yeah.
So you
They
have
fell already, right?
right, but they never reached the pinnacle, right? I mean,
You know
in
what?
the
Would
80s,
Arsenal fans take David Moyes right now?
of course they would. Why wouldn't they? But you'd have to
Yeah,
have Mikel.
would they swap all of West Ham for what they have?
Yes, 100%. I was going to say you don't get Moyes without. I mean, Moyes without Antonio at this point is worthless, right? So like, just
But yeah, so in terms of instead of getting myself way out of the way, I just think Damari Gray for $1.5 million, he's going to score 1.5 million pounds. He's going to score them if he's 5 and 5 on the wing, 5 goals, 5 assists, maybe. I think 10 or 15 goal contributions would be killer. I mean, he might be as good as Leon Bailey as we go into team underrated windows.
yeah,
for you, right? Like,
yeah. I mean,
you're gonna talk about tell us about what you think about Villa.
I'm going to talk about the fighting former Grealishes. I think that the way that they spent that money was so measured. They basically spent it even before they had it, which was kind of cool.
Well, they knew they were going to get the 100.
Of course, well, no, I know that they knew, but like the thing was, and the thing I was afraid of with the Kane money that may have come in was that they were going to bundle it and say, okay, well, this player, and then the prices go up on players, right? Like, oh, he was a $25 million player. Now he's a $45 million player or whatever. And they really locked down Buendia from Norwich, Bailey from Bayer Leverkusen, and Danny Ings, one of our favorites, right? So bang, 3 right off the jump. That effectively you took Grealish out of the lineup and you put 3 players that walk right into your best 11. So, I mean, for me, it's great.
But the hard thing is that Grealish really was creating 4-3 players. That's how good he was.
Oh, absolutely. and the thing was is that, I mean, the thing that Grealish does, and one of the most underrated parts of his value is that he puts himself into situations. His positioning is, and his technical positioning around a player is that such that he gets fouled more than any player in the league, and he creates set pieces, which for a team like Villa creates goals.
It's the stop start. It's the acceleration deceleration.
Yes.
It's the sort of body control,
changing direction, right?
Mm-hmm. He's so good. He's been so good already for City.
Look, they've had a tough start to the season, but I think that betting these guys in, I think they'll be fine. And I think Buendia is going to get off. He has gotten off the mark already, but
he's got to get 10 and 10. That's the goal for him.
Yeah, okay, I could see
10 and 10
that.
and 1 red, not 2.
My only concern, obviously, is that Danny Ings can be made of glass, and if he can get,
they've got Watkins. That's the thing.
No, I know, but if Danny Ings, and I don't mean to belittle Watkins or Traore or El Ghazi, any of these attacking players that they have, I'm a big fan of what Villa's got already. But again, you've got Bailey and Buendia walking right into that team, so you've got competition that's going to raise those guys' levels. But yeah, I mean Ings and Watkins. The thing for Ings is that if he can play 25 Premier League games this year, ideally
he's
30,
score 15
at least. Yeah. So I mean they were my team before the season. I picked to go really, really well. And it's because I love the way that they kind of handled their business with Grealish.
We need
before
their
and after.
we need their claret and blue to destroy the Burnley claret and blue.
Oh, we can't stress that enough.
Yeah, it's very important that
there can only be 2.
There
can only be 2. All right, what do you got?
Yeah. I've got Crystal Palace as the underrated window.
Okay.
Now, it is a hipster pick. They seem to have finally righted it. The only issue I have with them is I'm not sure about Vieira. But if they end up firing Vieira, they have awesome players. They just got Edouard out of Celtic. He's 23 years old.
That's a good
sign.
Here
are his last 3 seasons. 18-19, 15-5, 20-21, 19-20, 21-9. At 22 years old, last season, 18-4. This is a good fucking player of Paris PSG heritage. So they've got a really good striker to replacing Ayew, because Ayew is just kind of a one-trick pony. We've spoken about Michael Owesi out of Reading. He's not back yet. He's working on it. Mark Gahey, Chelsea that they brought in. Joachim Anderson, who is the best part of Fulham's defense last year, an
He
on
was.
the ball defender.
I think he was the
nice
captain as
player.
a loan, right? He was a loan to Fulham and became the captain. So that tells you a lot.
And then, of course, my new favorite, like Jack Grealish, you're fired. My guy, Conor Gallagher. Bring it. He's like a masculine version of Tom Cantwell, who's a little bit femme.
A little bit, a lot of it. Yeah.
Right, like Cantwell looks at Conor Gallagher and goes, "That's what I was going for." Right? The hair, he's much more muscular, he's much stronger. Scored 2 really good goals, got really stuck in, really nice fighting player, sort of a West Brom sort of, sometimes these teams go down, you kind of don't see the fight, but he was one who stood out for me. And then another sneaky good signing is Will Hughes from Watford. A nice
Your defense is terrified.
Yeah.
Will Hughes on fire.
He's kind of like a shitty kind of Gareth Barry type, like just a defender, a getting away guy. Like, is this guy gonna fucking Lee Cattermole cunt over here running around in my face? But these are the type of guys that I talk about. These Englishness. He's got the Englishness. He's got the fight. Now, does Palace have a lot to do still? Yes, but they got the right players at the right price, and whether they are able to stay in the league, I don't know, but they've got assets, right? If you're in a rebuilding phase, you want to have assets and hope. And Palace fans can still have hope. They still have Zaha. They still have Eze to come back, hopefully this year. I don't know. He did his Achilles. But that would be my favorite window. And Palace fans will be over the moon with who they have.
Let me expand on this for a second, because when you look at their in and out, we talked about it earlier in the summer. They lost 7 first-team players.
Yeah, it's what Burnley.
They walked out the door. But they walked out the door. They didn't even sell them. Okay, stop. Yeah, so their wages are off the books, but they didn't get anything as far as the transfer fee for them. So you had Gary Cahill, Scott Dan, Andros Townsend, Patrick Van Aanholt, who, by the way, I'm surprised they couldn't sell him, Mamadou Sakho, James McCarthy, and everybody's favorite racist, Wayne Hennessy. So all of these players walked out the door for 0 return, and they were able to turn it around better than I thought that they would. And I think Vieira's
director of football or something.
Yeah, I think Vieira is doing a good job with them so far. I am more optimistic on them than I was maybe even a month ago. So we'll see. I like Palace. I would hope
the difficulty is that how much time does Vieira get? Like, if they're languishing and they're like bottom 4 and they're just straggling, I think they're a second half team, but Vieira needs to coach his ass off and get this team moving and getting some good wins, or at least some swashbuckling wins. I mean, listen, Roy Hodgson is a lot of things. Fun and exciting football is not one of them, right? He kept that team in the league playing the football he learned how to play when Alf Ramsey fucking won the World Cup for England in 1966. So, good coach, good guy, found his right level at Palace. Famous. He's a lower half manager, and that's what Palace are. But this version of Palace is another one that helps the league be much more fighting, and you expect that when you play them, you might get beat because they'll come at your ass.
Sure.
What else have we got, Mike? I think
that's pretty much it. I mean, it's the international break. There's not a ton, but what do you have?
We've got to talk about Barcelona.
We have to talk about Barcelona. All right,
so this is out of our purview, but okay. So Barcelona is on fire. Essentially, they have had the worst window in history. Like, just losing Lionel Messi for nothing makes it the worst window in history.
Oh yeah.
But listen to this: they bought Antoine Griezmann 2 years ago for $140 million from Atletico de Madrid. He played like shit for them. He never did anything for them. He never fit in. He never did anything. Then they had to let Luis Suarez go to Atletico, and they won the league.
Yep.
Now they've sold or loaned.
They've loaned
back to Atletico with an obligation to buy for $40 million. So they lost $80 million on him, and he gets to go back. No harm, no foul. They just eat $80 million because they need to sell anything to anyone for any reason at all. So
anything that's literally not glued to the floor has to go.
They're selling. Yeah, today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just catastrophic player. Anyone who had any value, I think, is gone. Like, the players that are still there basically don't know resale value at their price, right?
Mhm.
They would have loved to move Coutinho. Coutinho's not going anywhere.
No.
They threw Pjanic out the door. He went somewhere. I don't even know where he went.
Yeah.
They got rid of him. They got guys to cut their wages in half. Like half the old school Catalonians who went to the Masia, Alves and Piqué took shaves on their price. Messi was supposed to stay under those conditions, and it didn't work out, and he had to go.
They
right?
didn't even
They
ask
couldn't
him in his press conference. He said, they asked me to shave my wages 50%, and I agreed. And that was the last I heard from them. They didn't ask me for anything else.
You couldn't cut it with more than that.
No, I understand. But my point is, like, they didn't ask for anything else. They just said no. Like, I did everything they asked, and they still said no. So
yeah. Well, I mean, they must be in really bad shape. But apparently, and this is crazy because I don't know if you've ever been to Barcelona. It's one of the more beautiful cities in the world.
I have not.
The Picasso Museum is there. Sagrada Familia is there. All these amazing museums and art and Gaudi buildings just walking around. There's mosaic buildings. It's an incredible, beautiful place. The number one museum in Barcelona is the Museum of Barcelona Football Club.
Yeah.
And that's been closed for 18 months. And you think they make a lot of money in that thing? 90,000 people in that stadium, empty. No ships coming in. There's been no money. They got killed because they were basically buying players on like, oh, we'll pay you back because next year's money.
Right.
We'll give it to you next year. Next year came due.
It's like a 12-year-old playing franchise mode. Like, oh, I'll trade next year's draft picks. No big deal.
Yeah. They basically traded all their draft picks. They need a Stepien rule in that regard. If you know anything about basketball, you couldn't trade two back to back. But yeah, Barcelona, you're having the worst window in the history of football. I cannot think it like. It would be as though basically their window is like they went down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
almost like, they've gotten relegated.
They actually did get relegated. They got relegated out of the Super League into regular La Liga. They're just a shit La Liga team now.
Yeah. That's really a good point. Yeah.
All right, brother.
All right, let's get out of here.
Okay. That was the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast with Mike Salerno and Laurent Cortines. We are the football wing of the Chop Sports Network. We record on Tuesdays and Fridays, so be sure to subscribe wherever you are and wherever you get your podcast. And if you're listening on Apple, please rate and review. I read the reviews recently. They're all really, really good. And please check out our friends at FanHub, and please check out BetUSA. We'll put the link in the show because it helps us survive.